This video is being a good person worth it? And these are the replies that came into it. Short answer, no, you're welcome. And another one is, pragmatically speaking, in terms of achieving life goals or getting what you want, being a good person is practically worthless. Appearing like a good person is valuable, but being good is a F tier stat. I think about it a bit. It's so much more meta to just be completely sociopathic in all aspects. I honestly can't bring myself to do it, despite maybe having the intelligence to pull it off. Modesty, integrity, honesty. These are trash stats that I wish I didn't put a single point into. It's much better to be arrogant, loud, and frankly stupid, in my opinion. So, these are, of course, what's the point of this YouTube channel? What's the point of me making these videos? And what's the point of my coaching practice in general? So, I'm not really here to try to tell you how to live your life, right? Because I trust that you know how to do it. You know your life the best. And, you're fine without these videos. But, if you happen to be suffering, that is when I come in to help, right? Because I mean, there's other things that I can help with as a coach, but I'm primarily focused on the removal of suffering as a Buddhist, right? So Buddhism and the Buddhist principle that everyone can be happy is a big, 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 big motivator for my business. So, if you are believing that it's not, worth it to be a good person and that being a good person sucks, and it's not inviting suffering onto you, good. You can hold on to that belief, and it's okay. Like, I'm really, really okay with you believing that. But, in case, right? In case you are feeling bad about you being a good person, that's what I really want to talk about in this video. So, when we say something is good for us or something is bad for us, right? What is that really about? What makes what makes a personality trait worth it? In my opinion, what makes a personality trait more or less like worth it and good is the kind of the benefits in life that you get as a result of having those traits. So, taking what the other commenter said, right? When you're sociopathic and you just optimize your gains, when you manipulate other people into doing things for you, it's good for you because it makes it easier for you to get the things you want in your life, right? So, if I can get the same object A, using 100% of my effort and willpower and 50% of my willpower, what's better in the long run? Like 50%, right? If it's the same object, I want to conserve my energy. And I want to make it do like that. Okay, so in general, when we say something is worth it, when we say something is good or bad, that's what I'm really thinking of. And you can disagree with me and let me know in the comments what you think. So, now, let's talk about being good, right? Being good is different from not being bad. What I mean by that is, if I don't punch elderly people, am I a good person or a bad person? I'm just a person, right? If I do punch elderly people, then, like, socially speaking, I'm kind of a bad person, right? If I go out of my way to volunteer at old people's homes, if I go out of my way to volunteer at disabled people's community centers, then I'm a good person, right? So, being a good person is not a requirement. You don't have to be a good person. And being a good person is an intentional thing, so it does invite your work and effort. So when you look at it from that lens, right? When you look at the ROI, return on investment, common things that you want out of your life is like more money, and then romantic prospects, riches, objects of your desire, and volunteering at animal shelters and donating to like a non-profit organizations. It's not gonna give you that. Moreover, it's actually going to like take you farther away from those goals, right? Because that's like time and money that could be spent hustling and trying to benefit yourself. Okay, so now let's take that to the most maximum degree. And you get all the things that you want. And now, when you keep living that life of having these like external kind of things that you want in your life, and you want them to constantly flow into your life, do you think you'll be able to draw a line somewhere? Like, without these types of prompting questions. Greed and desire is like a emotional mindscape that you can be consumed into. You can be as rich as your boss, but there's nothing stopping you from wanting more money. You could be as rich as your department head, and again, nothing stopping you from wanting more. You can be as rich as your CEO, again, nothing is stopping you from wanting more. You can be as rich as Elon Musk, nothing stopping you from wanting more. So, regardless of the amount of money and the amount of resources that you have, there's always going to be some more that you can get. So, when you focus on that kind of a life, constantly wanting things into your life, you implicitly define your life by the things that you don't have. The things that you do have is now something you can potentially lose. So in the grand long run, your life sort of becomes a lose-lose game, where you are always thinking of the things that you don't have, and the things that you have is things you can lose. And neither really make you happy. Because how can you, right? Like, you keep wanting more and more. On the other hand, when you look at the short term and the immediate kind of payoffs and the benefits, living the good life, ethical life, moral life, and going out of your way to do good life, it's not gonna pay you. It's not gonna give you material goods. It's not gonna give you really anything tangible in return. But when can you give freely? So, you know that donation is like virtueful, right? It's a good thing to donate to like charities and non-profits. But I'm sure everyone has some kind of a related moment to this kind of a feeling where you donate and then you feel like, I could have really used that money myself, right? So I can ask you to donate $1 a day. Maybe that's okay, right? But then if I told you to donate $20 a day, you'd be like, psh, I could use that money, right? So what I'm trying to get at is the ability to be congruently happy or like not scarce. As you are giving your time, as you are giving away your resources, you can only do that when you have more than enough. Right? So, suppose you're at Hometown Buffet and you got a gift card. So you don't even have to pay for it. And you got your plate of food and then now you're like full, right? But then, you can bring a +1. It's part of this promotion or whatever, right? You're full. But there's like more food. So in that situation, it's kind of easy to bring in a person who's starving outside. Because why? It's already paid for and the food is like abundantly there, right? So, if giving and being a good person, basically like being in service by doing good, if that doesn't feel good to you, then I don't think you should do it. Because then you're gonna suffer by being a good person. And maybe that's what's happening in the comments, right? But being a good person when you can is its own reward. Because you can only really give without attachment when you see yourself as an infinitely resourced person. So, then your life, in contrast to the lose-lose relationship that you had before, is all the things you don't have, you don't even need. It's like all the food, extra food remaining at the Hometown Buffet, which means all the resources that are out there that you don't need, it's things that you can give. Oh, it's nice, right? And all the things that you do have is also things you can give to benefit other people. And then, you don't live in this world alone, right? So, when you amass a lot of wealth by yourself, and you don't circulate it, that means the people who could really benefit from that money circulating now have that chance gone, right? All the things that you store in your home, now they don't have an opportunity to be anywhere else, particularly to those who need it. All the food you eat until you're full and then you throw away, that food now has lost its chance to go to someone who's actually hungry that day, right? So, when you live a life of gain, you actually lead yourself into a very lonely world. You slowly start isolating yourself. And then, on contrast, on the other hand, when you live a life of give, what tends to happen is you bring your community with you. And you generally make your society a better place to live. So, is this about like socialism? I think that's kind of a... Every political system has its components of good and bad, right? So, I actually think there's a lot of good things about capitalism, and I have a business, right? I don't have a non-profit. So, I do participate in a capitalist world because... Why? It allows me to be creative with my resources in order for me to amass money. But the point of me amassing money is so that I can channel it through the people and the opportunities that really need it, right? So it gives me authority in how I can be useful to the world. So in that way, I'm kind of encouraging you to be in charge of the ideology of your life rather than ascribing yourself to some concept that exists and like putting yourself into the tool. No, you as a person are more complex and more nuanced and more powerful than some structure defined by other people, right? So, in general, I'm talking about the philosophy, though, and the pragmatic aspects of what happens when you amplify individual get. What happens when you amplify the communal good. And that's sort of the reason why I think being a good person is definitely worth it. So, well, I want to share a personal example of this. So, I am by no means like the best person in the world, right? But I have a full-time job and a business, which means I have some spare money, right? So, the house next to me was having some trouble kind of like having landscaping done because of some landlord issues or whatever. And so the tenants in the next door, they were living in this kind of house with like a really overgrown jungle kind of a garden. So I called up my landscaper and I was like, "Hey, um, you know the house next to me? Uh, how much do you think it's gonna be to like clean up that house?" And then my landscaper, number one, he got another job, which benefits him. Number two, my neighbors, who are the tenants next door, they got a chance to be have a clean like a life, a clean kind of a house and the surrounding area. And number three, like it didn't really cause me any damage, and I can afford to do so. So really, it's like a win-win-win, right? I know that my money went to my friend, and my friend had an opportunity to pay his workers. So it's a classic case of win-win-win. Because why? If I didn't have the resources to do that, then I would be feeling bad. In that case, it's better for me to not do that because my spending on that would invite suffering onto me. But that wasn't the case, and now I end up with a win-win-win. Everyone's happy. And then another case is that that those tenants eventually had to move out, and then we had new tenants. And then so I introduced myself to the new tenants, and then I was like, "Hey, how are you doing? I'm Billy. I'm your next door neighbor." And then they're new people, right? So they don't know when they pick up the trash in our neighborhood. So in our designated day, I just put out their trash can along with mine. Because why? I'm doing mine anyway, right? So, and what's another pack of trash can gonna do? And then I did that for a few weeks, and then last week I was sick with COVID, and then our trash cans are like a little bit heavy, too heavy for my wife. So I was gonna drag my like sick body out into the yard to drag it out, but then my neighbors did it for me. On Tuesday night, they put my trash can out, and then on Wednesday, they put it back for me. I didn't even ask them. And this is how like goodwill just goes around the world, right? And I think this is another one of those lived experiences things. Like when I say these things, it's so easy for it to be like, "Oh yeah, I guess Billy, yeah, sure, I guess it feels good." Uh-huh. But once you have at least one of these experiences, then I think your heart will truly know that it really does do you a lot of good to be a good person.